Okay. It is common knowledge that B2B brands face challenges in using social media, which includes the likes of content creation. In fact, 1 in 3 marketers say it's their greatest difficulty in social media marketing. Data management and utilization is a challenge as well, as is social media integration, in that many marketers don't have a cohesive strategy across all channels, including online and offline marketing. Building relationships and engaging the audience, measuring and analyzing results from social media marketing efforts, and perhaps staying on top of industry trends and best practices is also a challenge. Now, these are all challenges that our guest is familiar with and guides businesses on how to stay top of mind with their community and referral network using social media. But to me, the idea of being unforgettable, given all the noise we experience on a daily basis, is more of a challenge, I think, for most businesses, including myself. I'm keen to hear what our guest has to share on that perspective. But first, hello and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast, brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm Vinay Koshy, and our guest is Shaily Hakimian. Now, Shaily, you started doing social media as a bit of a hobby in high school, I think on a platform called MySpace. Most people may not even know what it is, but you did. In fact, I believe you didn't realize what you were doing until you saw a job application asking if you'd ever managed an online community, and you first realized that there was perhaps something into your hobby. You graduated from university with a background in teaching, and you really leveraged that skill set to help business owners make the most of their presence on social media, of course. And as I said before, really building out the community and staying top of mind with the community and referral network. Now, Shaily, I'm curious. Having a hobby and realizing that there's something more to it is great. What was there a particular incident that triggered this passion to dive deep into it and really help businesses leverage the most out of social media? Because most businesses, at the end of the day, aren't really interested in social media. They're more interested in the dollars and cents. So how have you been able to connect the dots, so to speak, for them?
Oh my goodness. So glad to be here. So one of the things that businesses that I used to try to pitch myself to all the time were like, oh, I don't need social media. I get my business from word of mouth. And I kept being like, okay, they get it from word of mouth. I go away. I guess it's not for me. And then I realized like their issue is that they don't stay top of mind with the people that give them their word of mouth business, right? So if I say, hey, go to Vinay and get some help, some more B2B success, they're just trusting me that I know you, right? But then they go over to your website and it blows their mind with all the details and inspiration. It's not just my word against yours. It's, hey, I trust Shaily, but I also, this website's amazing, or this social media content's amazing. Oh, wow, they really are understanding my problem. Oh, fantastic. So instead of it just being a referral, just being like, trust the person that sent you, it's now there's information to back it up and you can go above and beyond. Now, the next step of that is if you have 50 people that refer you business all the time, I ask them, how are you currently staying in touch with them? And when they look at me, they're like, oh, I don't know, through networking and parties, maybe occasionally. I'm like, sounds like a bad answer. And I'm like, at a minimum, if you have their emails, are you sending them a little email every other week or so? Are you posting on LinkedIn where you have your big network? My dad's network of choice is on WhatsApp. Is he talking to those people on a regular basis? And I'm sure nobody that knows him forgets about him because he's in their face all day long on WhatsApp. So they have this incredible relationship bucket, but they don't use it or don't communicate to it in order to populate those introductions that they say are so valuable for their business. They're hoping and praying that something will happen. And I'm like, no, we have the power in our hands to capture that attention and make those people smile and be unforgettable.
Terrific. And I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that. But I'm also curious, given your journey to date, what would you say is your personal area of strength?
Ooh, so I love working with the people who have all the hats at work, who have too many things on their plate and they've got too many deadlines to go do. And social media is usually one of them that's thrown on there. They usually don't know what they're doing. They're not confident in their skills. They feel, oh, I got to do it. I'll just check the box and I'll say it's happy taco day and happy rainbow day and happy it's Tuesday day. It's stupid content. And I'm like, because they don't know what to do better and they don't have any mental space to do it. So my favorite thing is when I can take these people who often don't feel good enough about their own strengths and help them realize how much they already have within them that they can tap into in order to look really good at their job and make their companies look amazing. For example, I've had clients who are really randomly good at PR, who you never expect would know anything about PR. I only talked to the other day that happens to be a good journalist. I have another guy who wrote a whole book he's not going to be a video star, but he could definitely do a lot of writing to make him look good. They all come in with these advantages, and sometimes they don't realize how powerful that is or how to validate that in the direction that they're going. Because like you said, there's too many best practices, too many choices, and a lot of times they just need someone to cut down the noise and be like, hey person, hey Vinay, you've got this. You've got the tools inside of you, and it does not have to be as hard as your brain and your soul is telling you it is. And watching that transformation and watching them take their own power and put something out that is earth-shatteringly good melts my heart. And I'll say this, I just posted a couple weeks ago about a video of being like, hey, like people say, oh, Google make me go viral. And I never tell people I will make them go viral. But for some reason, at least 3 different companies, one of them was a startup tech company, all of their posts that I like helped work on with them all like blew up very quickly. And I'm like, they went viral amongst their network. Like some things work. When you speak to people that's true to your soul, like good things happen. And I know my clients felt really proud in those moments. And then I was like, proud mama bear, like, good job.
Excellent. If I could put this in a slightly different way, your strength is really in helping others discover their strengths. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it makes their businesses and companies look good.
So, in that area of strength, certainly understanding your strengths is important, but what else would you say that businesses don't know but should?
Oh, okay. The dumbest, simplest thing that any one of your people listening to this can do right now, as low tech or high tech as they want, is brain dump any FAQ questions that you get on sales calls, leads, people in your network, people in your community have about your product or your thing. Because if they can't find those answers quickly, you're going to have to waste time explaining them on a phone call. And we don't have time for that. Let's make it easy. Take the guesswork out of anything they've ever wanted to know and put it out there. They want to know that you can solve their problem, so write it down. And you can put that in a Google Doc and use that to send people. Or if you have a proper website, put it on your website somewhere. It's as simple as that. And use that to generate content. Very easy.
Absolutely, and a brilliant idea. Now, Shaily, you're a public speaker. You've spoken at Trump Club, Fiverr, State Farm, the University of Chicago, and many other places and opportunities. So people listening in would probably say, hey, Shaily, this is easy for you. You're very comfortable putting yourself out in the public space. What about for those of us that are a little more reserved and perhaps boring in a boring industry? How can we be unforgettable? I mean, because quite often I receive daily messages or newsletters, etc., and it's in my face. It's annoying. How can I not be annoying, be relevant, and unforgettable?
You got to be you. You got to trust your gut, right? If somebody is being annoying in an email marketing thing, I don't think they have good people skills. And people skills matter, even if you're sending an email. I would also say this. I'll go back to a lot of my clients will have fear and anxiety around what to post or what to say. Or they're like, I don't want to tell you about my anxiety and depression on social media. I'm like, I didn't ask you to reveal your deep, dark secrets. Shoot, but go talk about mental health is a great thing if you're able and you're not scared. But I will say this is that, so those oftentimes when I'm like, okay, let's untap something in your soul, they're like, oh, I don't want to post this or I'm nervous. And I had, surprisingly, you think I've been okay with this? I had somebody who also is a public speaker force my hand to be like, post your first LinkedIn post that you're going to do and commit. And I was like, okay. And so what I do for people who are nervous or shy, I'll say this, I'm going to be your first audience member. And maybe I'll even do this for your users. If you are scared to put something out there, it's a little more open, a little more juicy, send it to me first. And I will probably tell you it does not suck and it's fine. And just try it and just post it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Because once you do it the first time, it's not going to feel as bad. Now, if you're not somebody who's as glamorous or sexy or boring, if someone's boring, there's easy things to make anyone less boring. Is that one thing I see people make mistakes on is they don't start whatever their post is with something juicy. And I even looked at your podcast. Your podcasts start with titles that are telling you what the heck the thing's about. I've seen so many podcasts that don't even tell you what it's about. They'll tell you the name of a person, but if I've never heard of this person before, I don't really care about the episode. So unless it's Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't really care. You want to make sure whatever the most interesting thing is there at the top, because if people don't like that first thing you share with them, whether it's a video clip, a book, a title, whatever, they're not going to read the rest of it. So that will make it more interesting. And like you said, when you think about your people relationships and you don't think about being in your face and annoying, that doesn't work. You have to always trust your gut of who you are as a person and what you would say to these people genuinely, because it doesn't have to look like Joe Schmo social media bro. That's fun. Joe Schmo social media bro. It doesn't have to look like that guy. If you think someone's annoying, don't copy their behavior. I don't care that you want an award. I don't care. No, just tell me something that you would tell a friend that is helpful to them about whatever it is that you do. It's as simple as that. And I will
Certainly.
help you if you're feeling that way.
I love what you're saying. You've certainly unpacked a few elements that would go towards creating a mind shift and perhaps even a bit of a heart shift as well. Is there more to the piece of convincing people that this is something that's not just doable, but can actually yield results? Because it's one thing to put messages out there. It's quite another to draw a correlation between what's being done in social media through to revenue generation.
So this is a good one. I like to answer the question for people, how can I guarantee social media success? Because people are like, make $1 billion on social media tomorrow. And they all sound like they're full of crap. How can I guarantee success? The biggest thing that works, especially for people who are not in the Gen Z internet generation, is that you have contacts. If you have solid contacts that are trustworthy, that are buyers, whether they're current buyers, past buyers, friends, you can do anything, right? I think a lot of people, if you're starting from zero, it's a different battle, right? I'm not here to pretend to give you all the contacts you need to make your business grow. That's not what I do. And there's people who might try to sell you that, but that's the stuff that takes a human and you had to have something go right for you if you have a company that's successful or has investments or whatnot. So you have the good contacts, but you have to say something to them that's actually meaningful. And if you just have the check the box social media where it's, oh, look, here's a post about something, or I just reshared this, fine. But if you're the CEO of that company, if you're the CEO of some cool tech startup, you're probably the person that understands the problem better than anybody. And you probably are in the people's heads that you want to serve better than anybody. You need to say that stuff. Like, why did you even create this product? There's probably 20 different conversations you had that made you realize I need to solve this tech problem right now. But you never hear those CEOs talk about it, or whoever is the face of the company, they need to talk about it because people trust them. They have a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can have that conversation that you would have had with maybe one big lead with 50 big leads over time. And instead of you having to chase them, they now have this education machine that potentially can bring your sales team a much better engaged lead that knows the answers to these questions already because they understand that you understand them and what they really need. Are you following?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just thinking as you were speaking that wouldn't it make sense then for businesses to actively seek to be on things like podcasts, where you could essentially have other people or other folk in business actually asking you questions and probing to seek perspectives that you may not necessarily think of, because you can quite certainly be married to an idea and refine your ability to be clear and concise in your messaging.
Oh, you just gave me the best idea. I didn't think about podcasts, but the podcast format is exactly what you should have a team member on your social media team do for you, is that they interview you, ask you all the questions, and they take out all the ugly noise. They can turn that into a blog. They can turn that into a post. They can make video clips. You can do a million and a half things with it. And that very fancy, expensive CEO person can go back to doing whatever they have to do that only they can do. And that's how you can take that, funnel all that energy and all those words into much better use of time and much better use of impact. You're scaling the power of that one person who's too busy to talk to the leads that they probably want to talk to. So yes, and that is a strategy that a lot of agencies will use. They'll do, we'll do 1 month, an interview every month, and that'll generate all of our content for everything. But yeah, if you frame it like a podcast, that is 1,000 times less intimidating. I love that. And you can use it and they can use it, and it's great. Brilliant idea.
Exactly, because you're also combining the leverage of other people's audiences, so it has 100%. A multiplying effect, which is what I recommend too. But yeah,
I've done business from podcast guesting. I've also made great friends, and I've learned so much from these amazing hosts. And it's also generated me some content to use too. I bless you, podcast hosts. You guys do so much, because you not only have to talk to me here, there's probably some prep. I know we talked a long while ago. You have to message people, you have to agree to things, get on terms, and then you have to post it, and then you can do 1.5 million marketing things. And I know you do a really good job explaining what's in every episode. Very few people are good at that. Good for you. But it takes a lot of work, so I commend you.
Thank you. So if we solve the core issues of content from things like brand story, things that we're doing, FAQs, etc., what else would you recommend we think through in order to ensure that our content strategy is on point, relevant, and something that's referable or shareable?
Oh, okay. I'm going to answer the first part, but maybe remind me of the second. The word that I was thinking about as you were talking is directionality. I hope that's a word, directionality. Where is the direction that you're taking people? Okay. So every one of these marketing tools is a way to scale a relationship that we build, right? Like, you had a robot remind me that we had this podcast today. I'm like, oh yes, here's how I know that I'm going to have this interview and I'm not going to be a surprise cancellation. This is so nice. You made the experience super good. And it's the same for the internet, right? So let's say you fall in love with a piece of content of mine on LinkedIn, right? You're going to be like, oh, who's this Shaily lady? Then you go to my profile, you read my headline. Oh, she helps people who have too many hats at work. Oh, that sounds like me. Let me read her about section. And then my about section should hopefully be a dream come true for my ideal client and also tells them what they can do next to get more from
Mhm.
me. So usually to sign up for something, get on my mailing list or get a 10% off coupon code or whatever the heck it is. And from there, they can get on my mailing list, which is more vetted people. I always love email marketing because the people on your email list are usually way more invested in potentially buying from you than someone on social media.
Mhm.
So you have this high population of goodies, and then they can see your stuff on a regular basis, maybe every week, every other week with some good insights. And eventually, when they're ready for you, that's going to be one very easy step to be like, yes, Vinay, I'm going to buy your thing. Or I want to get on a consult call with you, or whatever the heck your thing is. Or I want to use your software. A lot of times people don't have that and it falls on deaf ears, and there's no way for people who are not yet sure what they want from you to stay in your orbit. So I use this example. I had a therapy client, or she had a therapy practice. Actually, I met her because I was a podcast guest on a podcast years ago. And she didn't have any of that. And I'm like, well, if you don't want her therapy right now, then you're going to leave her site and you might not even remember the company name and you might never come back again. But if you can sign up and get a little mental health resource, you can now get on our mailing list. And at least every month now, you'll remember that her therapy practice is one that understands you and the problems that you have. And that lets you build that relationship far beyond just the one time they see you on social media. So giving someone a direction and a way to keep capturing them so they can get more connected to your brand and keep getting more intel, that's the magic. And I've done this with lots of different companies before. So it's, yeah, social media is like almost the carrot, but there's so many other pieces that go together, right? And
Mhm.
I'm gonna, your head, what was it, Astrid? I listened to Astrid's podcast episode about SEO, and she's like, all of these different things go together. And just like that, my therapy practice lady, SEO was a key for her. And I don't have to understand everything about SEO, but whatever her SEO people were doing has to connect to what I'm doing. And when all those pieces go together, that's when you have a great strategy. Same with
Mhm.
PR, same with writing. All of this goes together and it's an ecosystem. And they're all different ways to go deeper with people.
With what you're saying, it makes sense. It has to make sense for the business. How do we ensure that the perspective that we're sharing is actually uh, shareable, in that it doesn't just make sense for us, but it's actually worth sharing from the perspective of other people?
Sometimes I'll say this, sometimes if it's helpful to one person, it's probably going to be helpful to more people. One of my friends, he has an agency owner. He does like website SEO for like travel companies. And he says this, he's every great love song was written for one person,
Mhm.
but like all of us can relate to what that one love song is because we all have feelings and we've all been in love or whatever the heck. And I thought to myself, oh, it's a great idea. If you write like one post that's really secretly like linked for this customer, it probably will relate to other people who are in your network. Because a lot of times people will look at your content and then they'll never tell you that they look. They're called lurkers, right? My favorite little LinkedIn word, the LinkedIn lurkers. Any platform, honestly. And you know what? But they can still connect. So maybe they don't hire you tomorrow, but in 2 months you post something else that they love, and they're like, oh yeah, Vinay is my person. I'm gonna go over there right now. That's something that is a little thing. So if you're like, oh, I gave this advice to a founder the other day about my software, actually, the 1,000 other people on my LinkedIn might want to hear that. Let me just post that. It's things that you get asked all the time. It's things that bother you about your industry. Oh, I really don't love this about my industry. You don't have to know everything. As long as you're not a cocky jerk, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Just put it out and see what people say. Hey, what do you think about this? Am I on point? Am I not? And that's sometimes very easy. 3 things that people you wish you knew about X, Y, and Z. 3 misconceptions about B2B marketing. Questions I get all the time, or mistakes I see people making. There's so much you can say. What do you feel? How does Elon Musk affecting your life right now? Give me the rant. There's a lot of things you can say, and that's okay to share. And not everyone will then reshare it because not
Mhm.
everyone is the best at resharing B2B content, but people will read it. They just won't tell you how deeply they've engaged. And sometimes they'll surprise you. It happens all the time for my clients. Somebody comes out of the woodwork and they're like, I keep seeing all your posts. They're amazing. And then they get all butterflies and happy about it because they're like, really? Me? Like what I have to say? And I'm like, yes, people like what you have to say.
That's terrific. For those who perhaps are posting content, let's say a platform like LinkedIn on a regular
Yeah.
basis, they might get a like or two. They notice that they're getting a fair few impressions.
Yeah.
What should they take away from that? Is it that their content is engaging, not related? How should we read it? How can we improve it?
Okay, there's a lot of thoughts on impressions. So if you overthink the algorithm, you're making a mistake. Unless you're like Coca-Cola and you have plenty of time for that, don't overthink the algorithms. At least not if you're like early stage on trying to build up your social media. If you're only getting a like or two, I wouldn't overthink it.
Mhm.
The other thing I'll say is because I run an online community for a bunch of consultants who are trying to get more business on LinkedIn. It's through one of my clients. And I've been running this community for 5 years. And all the time they're like, why are my posts doing worse right now? Like, why am I not getting as many? I used to get 1,000 impressions and now I only get 200. Oh, the world is ending. I'm like, no, shh. Don't get distracted. Your one job is this: match good information to good eyeballs on a consistent basis. The
Mhm.
algorithm and the data, we don't always have control on what works or what doesn't. Yes, we'll know when something pops, but don't overthink it, especially if it's going to make you feel bad about yourself. The second thing I'll say is that we talked about speaking engagements. I've talked, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of people on stage before, probably actually thousands on stage, online, offline. And I think to myself, oh, if there's 1,000 people looking at me right now, that's an incredible speaking opportunity. And when we think about impressions, people for some reason think, oh, it's just 200 or it's just 100. That's like nothing. And I'm like, when is the last time you took 2 seconds to post something and 100 people acknowledge your existence? I go to the toilet every day. No one's watching me there. That's nothing. But I can take 2 minutes and post something on LinkedIn and people will see it. Even if it's 100 people. I have so many people complain, oh, it's just 100. I used to get 1,000 or I used to get 2,000. I'm like, who cares? If your list of people who follow you are targeted towards what you do and who you serve, you're in great shape because those 100 people who are seeing you, some of them are going to engage with it and never tell you
Mhm.
that they engage with it. And that's something we should be proud of. Now, if you're only getting 2 likes, there's tricks you can up that. You can thank people for engaging and then they'll keep engaging and then LinkedIn algorithms will like you more. Don't
Mhm.
overthink it though, because I can tell you that nugget and then you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna try to hack the algorithm just a little. Don't get distracted. That's why I try to stop my clients from overthinking it. But engage and love on the people who do engage with you. And over time, they're going to keep engaging with you because who doesn't love positive reinforcement? That's one
Mhm.
of my teacher tips that comes out in social media.
Terrific. Building trust. That's an issue that's talked about a lot. I'm not sure that we necessarily know how to do it well. What's your take on it from your observations?
It's just like I said, the Gen Z kids, like they learned it through the internet. They didn't learn it like OG grown-ups like we did, who like had to build those connections. And people, when I see someone likes my post, I usually have some relationship with them. It's very 100,000% crystal clear to me when someone is a connector and a networker because you can look at their posts and they can post the most boring content and they still get 50 likes. And I'm like, how did that happen? They're a super connector. That's why. And then I look at them like I run a LinkedIn booth for a client every year where they just ask me whatever questions they want. My client pays for it and people leave thrilled and their lives are changed. And that's great. And one of the guys was like a young, I don't know, he had to be like 19, 20 years old. He's like, I'm going to leave this conference with a job. And I looked at his profile and I was like, every post you have has 100 likes. What is this? You're a connector. He's like, no, I'm not a connector. I'm like, you're a connector. And I saw how many people you're making friends with at this conference. It's 100% a fact. So when you have those good relationships, your social media is so stupid easy. And that's why I'm like, don't waste the opportunity. If you have a good network, if you're not saying anything to them, you're wasting the social capital you spent years building. Because I promise you, the little Gen Z kids have no idea how to do that. And yeah, they might know how to push all the buttons, but you know how to like, you know how you are with your people. And that's the trust that you've already cultivated offline. And it's going to make it a piece of cake online.
I believe you talk about they ask, you answer
I
philosophy.
love it.
Tell us
Marcus
more about it.
Sheridan, so great. So
Could you tell us more about it?
it's so good. So especially, okay, look, his book is a sales pitch for companies to hire them to fix their SEO and their websites and their sales process. But the high level of it is exactly what I said earlier. Answer all the questions that you get. Make sure that there's zero guesswork between your buyer and what you have to offer.
Mhm.
And it's so nice. And so one of the examples I took from his book that I made for myself is that people don't know how much it costs to hire a social media consultant or even a social media manager or any of these things. So I made a blog on my website that says like how much it costs you to hire a social media coach. And I explain, here's an intern, here's a assistant, here's a full-time worker. And I say the pricing, estimates, what are the pros and the cons, and who are they best suited for? So that when you're coming on my website, you have an idea of what I charge, but you also can know what's a better fit for you. Because if someone really needs an agency, I'm going to tell them to go to an agency or use me as the bridge between what they do now and who they hire. Because sometimes they have to guess, and I don't want people to have to guess with social media. There's so much more intel that they have that they give credit for. So that's one thing I took away. But yeah, explain what makes the price go up, makes the price go down, take away the guesswork, take away any learning curve for people. Because if your salesperson has to do all the explaining on the phone, and nobody wants to sit through that. Make it easy to get all those questions. And who are they going to hire? Ultimately, the person that they trust, which is your company, who's taught them everything there is to know about XYZ tech product. And then his other sidebar is that you should pay for someone to be a full-time video person. What you said earlier with the podcast, they want to pay somebody to be like what you're doing here with the camera up and asking people questions and then recording those and using it as content. So that's a little bit of his pitch by the end of the book, which is a great tool, but some of that stuff is more geared towards bigger companies. So don't read too far into it and apply it to wherever level your business is at now.
Certainly. So with this, that's a great tip, by the way. With this idea of producing that kind of content, you certainly want to apply it to different platforms. Now, I think most people are aware that a platform like LinkedIn requires a degree of formality as compared to something like TikTok or Instagram, etc. How would you recommend we approach this, especially for, say, someone who's running a digital agency or an accounting firm that's perhaps a little more buttoned up, shall we say?
Oh, I have so many feelings on this because I've been dying to get a law firm client for so long because they're so notoriously boring. They have more rules than everybody else, though, so there's a reason. But I would say, you say, oh, it's buttoned up. And I'm like, you know what? If you're the one person that's a little less buttoned up, I love you so much. You're my love. Don't be stiff and boring. But I know that's not always an option. Not everyone is this kind of personality where it's like a given. But sometimes it's just being a real person and not trying to like, because if you're playing into the, I see this with LinkedIn profiles where someone's, I do this, my skills are, I'm social, I'm capable, I conversationalist, whatever. And I'm like, I don't really care. Who cares? Give me the details. Tell me the story of you. What do you like to do at work? Tell me an experience you had. Showcase who you are. And just talk like you're a normal person. I don't know why people are so scared to do that, because that's not going to get you fired. Now, if you put in you want to talk about a political election and you want to get real spicy and controversial, that's probably not the best move for LinkedIn, unless your job is a political commentator, but that's probably not your move. But most things that people are ever going to share are not crossing the line in terms of professionalism. And being a little bit of a storyteller is nice, and it's not going to hurt you. Don't be stiff and boring. 99% of people are stiff and boring on LinkedIn. You not being stiff and boring will get you noticed. And I think people will love it, because don't be sleepy. Nobody wants sleepy. You're allowed to not be sleepy.
One of the things that I notice most B2B brands like to do is put up case studies or customer stories that are often told from the perspective of the brand themselves. I see a reaction there. How can we spice things up in order to just tell a story and the results that we get from it, but perhaps even not to shine a spotlight on the actual customer and get them involved in the process?
Yeah, so I'm going to call it again the episode I listened to before about Astrid. She's like, do it from the perspective of the people you're serving. Forget your brand. I don't care how fancy your brand is. I don't care about the features. What are the features going to do for me? That's the most important. And with the case studies, I'll give you this example. There is a guy that I followed. Shoot, I really want to cite my sources here. He made this thing about getting really good testimonials from clients. And Ryan Wagner is his name. Here's my addicting way to get testimonials. And one of the best things he does, instead of you just writing a testimonial, or I'm sure you can pay a firm to do a really good case study, but at a minimum, it was like, oh, tell me about the problem you were dealing with before you hired my firm or bought my software. And you get people to tell you in their own words what their problems were. And that as a starting point for, I felt like this and I struggled with da 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 da. Oh my gosh, tell me about your problems. I want to know, because maybe I have the same problem. And that's a great way to be a little bit more vulnerable of, hey, I had this issue. And then wait, there's a fairy tale here. You had this issue, you looked for a solution, you found a solution, and the solution made your life better. And here's the future that you live now because of my tool. Amazing, because that's so much more relatable than, I really love Vinay's podcast. It's great. It's fun. I love it. And not to say that these companies are doing that. I'm hoping their case studies are more robust than that. But telling people where they started and where they ended up is such a great way for someone to get a taste of what it's like to work with you, because not everyone gets to have that experience that you and I are having here on this podcast episode, but now you're scaling it because now people can have this conversation with us, that's with all whoever's listening to it. And I think that's the most beautiful part, so that they can get a bird's eye view to that client's lived experience. And that's what I love. So is that a formal case study? I don't know, but it will influence whatever, however you put out that story of how you've helped folks and what that journey is like. And that's as simple as that.
Certainly, and I would completely agree with you on that one. That it's the jobs to be done approach that you've kind of highlighted there. I'm completely in favour of it, and believe that it really unpacks what it means from the customer's point of view, at least better than your traditionally done case studies. So thank you for that.
Always.
Shaily, in terms of revenue generation, and perhaps we could look at your perspective here and how things are tracking for you. What would you say has been the key driver of growth for you over the past year?
Ooh, I think it depends on the year, right? Because
Over
sometimes
the past year, yeah.
past year, I would say my LinkedIn, it all comes down, I think, to my LinkedIn, because even if I meet somebody at an event or I'm a podcast guest or somebody says, oh, you should go follow Shaily, she has got great content, is that some people know they want me. If you're listening to this, you're like, oh, I need her. You're probably my person. Some people are in the middle and they're like, oh, I might need her, I might not need her. Some people have that moment, but then they're like, oh, I have to figure out my budgets and I should figure out these other things before I call her. And it's like when they are ready to call me, they know they see me all the time. So they will not skip a beat to be like, oh yeah, I know where Shaily is because I just saw her post last week. And that literally has closed deals for me, is that I meet somebody months before and they're ready for me and they see me. It's not like if you meet somebody networking event, you might forget about them like after 2 days, but they can't forget me because they're connected with me on LinkedIn. So I would say LinkedIn has been the tool. So if someone did find me in a podcast or if someone saw me somewhere else, that's what keeps people in my orbit longer term. And it helps a ton because people know I do what I do. And I forget, there's people in my network who I haven't seen in years and they feel like they know me so much better. And I'm like, I didn't interact with you since middle school. Oh, but you know my whole life because you read my LinkedIn content for the last 5.5 years. I'm like, okay, fair. I'll take it. And that helps. Somebody just did that today. A lead just came in literally as I was hogging onto this call because of somebody that I met at a networking event a couple times who had some sort of gig that they pitched me. I was like, okay, cool.
When you say content, are you just referring to posts? Are you actively commenting on other people's posts as well?
A bad thing. If you have a thoughtful comment to make,
Yeah.
your network will see it. So even if you're not posting, it almost serves you like a post. And so I like to cause sometimes a little controversy. So if I see somebody post something that I think is wrong, I saw a woman pretend that she gave birth to quadruplets, but then she's like, just kidding. And I'm like, you should not do that. You should not make jokes about pregnancy because you're making fun of people with infertility. When you do that, you're rubbing someone the wrong way. And everyone's, oh, congratulations on starting your business because she said she birthed the business or something. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is atrocious. And nobody put any dissent on there because it's LinkedIn and they're like, oh, it's an echo chamber. And I was like, no, I'm going to tell this woman this is really inappropriate. And a bajillion other people liked and commented on that post. And it's almost like I opened the door for these voiceless people to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. That's inappropriate. I don't think she ever changed it, but I am so glad I called it out because it's not okay. And that also tells people what kind of person you are. So is that everything in my strategy? No, but it is a great thing to do. You should always thank people for engaging with your stuff if you can, especially if they look normal. If there's anybody that you want to wow, actually, I'll have a story for you. I'll give you the story. So I love to empower young women. So if I can get a workshop where I empower teenagers or college students to talk about themselves, that's something that's hard for them to do. It's amazing. So I said, hey, look, who do you as a young woman want to get in front of? And there was a app called House Party a long time ago. And they're like, oh, the CEO of House Party, she's so cool. She's wonderful. Oh, I'd love to talk to her. And I was like, let me improvise right now in this middle of this workshop. I said, let's go look her up. On LinkedIn, very popular because she had venture capital and all this flula. So you probably couldn't get in touch with her very easily. I went to her Twitter because it was Twitter at the time. And I saw that she was posting on there like all the time. And like you mentioned earlier, so like a comment or two, not maybe but basically it was a dead zone, but she was trying. And I was like, if you're the one young girl that goes up to her 16-year-old and you're like, hi, lady that I love, and you write thoughtful comments every day to her stuff, she 100% will know who you are. And who do you think she's going to open the door to for an interview or an internship or whatever? Probably you. And, if there are people that you really want to wow, chances are their content sucks. And if you can engage with their stuff really thoughtfully, that is such an easy way to open the door and make someone smile.
Mhm.
I've done this over and over again. So these are all elements. And sometimes I'm stronger in some of these than others, but I'm consistent on LinkedIn. You will see a post from me fairly regularly, almost all the time on LinkedIn. I've been
Okay.
consistent-ish for 5.5 years. It's wild.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
So my takeaway from that would be really focus on your content as opposed to other people's content, but thoughtfully engage with others. Yeah.
Yeah, thoughtfully. Also, to take away the stress is that you don't have to post a million times a week.
Right.
Find a flow
Yeah.
that you can stick with, because the last thing you want to be is, I always use Game of Thrones. If Game of Thrones was halfway through the season, actually, we have to film more episodes. We'll come back eventually. We won't tell you when, but it might be in like a year or two. People would be angry. They would grab their pitchforks. So don't end their favorite TV show before it's meant to end. So it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be every day. It could be every other week. It could be once a month. Like whatever it is, stick with it. And if you need to prepare a little bit in advance, just in case life happens, do it.
A couple of other questions around LinkedIn. I've
Sure. I love it.
seen people suggest that we comment a fair bit before we post and after we post, and yeah, at other times as well. It seems as though you're not a believer of that, so to speak. Would I be
What do you mean
correct?
commenting, like responding to comments? You should definitely respond to
Yeah,
comments.
as
Oh,
in
respond to every comment.
respond or comment on other people's posts.
It helps. I'm sure the algorithms, the mythical, crazy algorithms, I don't always know how they work, but it helps when you're where you show the platform that you care about the platform and you care about other people. A lot of reciprocity. It's like a real thing. If you're
Mhm.
nice to other people's content, they might be nice to yours. It's nice. I would say there's a lot of different ways you can double down on your efforts. And like for some people, they're not engaging people. For me, like I got hired to do social media engagement for
Mhm.
a seafood brand in Texas for a year, where all I did was reply to people about crawfish all day long. And that was their moneymaker. And I was very like, that is one of my social media superpowers that like you can't really hire me for that anymore, but I do it for myself. And it's great. But will I tell a smaller tech company to go do that strategy? Probably not the same as if you're a seafood restaurant and you want people to show up right now. You have to pick your battles. And I would say depends on the how big they are, how much social media team they have, on what I would say to prioritize. But if your content's amazing. And if you don't engage, it's okay. But I wouldn't engage just for the sake of engaging, because,
Mhm.
like I said earlier, you're commenting on someone else's stuff. LinkedIn populates that to everybody in your network. And so if you're just doing a throwaway post, oh, Vinay commented on this. Oh, I like ice cream. I don't care that you like ice cream. Oh, this thing was really thoughtful. I see your point about X, Y, and Z. I struggle with this too. And here's my real feelings. That's a very different comment on someone else's post that will make you look good to whoever's in your network. It's a great advantage.
A great point there. The other thing that comes to mind is off late there seems to be a trend of tr trying to create these really attractive images, flowcharts, etc. on LinkedIn. It seems to have some traction as well as video. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts? What are your thoughts on those?
I feel like officially LinkedIn, it's going to probably change every 5 minutes of what LinkedIn likes today. And I will say, I feel like in my gut, LinkedIn likes a good variety of content. The carousel, we're talking about the carousel posts. There was a lot of buzz around them and everyone was doing them. And I even made one just to see what would happen. And it like was nice. But if you're not making it purposeful or meaningful or have something juicy in there, don't do it just to do it. But you can do it. It's just it takes time, and I don't
Mhm.
want you dilly-dallying over design when you need to just put information out there. 'Cause if it doesn't distract you from getting information out there, play with it. Am I obsessed with it? No, but if you have graphic design skills and again, not getting distracted, try it. With video does over the last 5 years or whatever, video can have less traction than just a purely text post. But I look at it as this, is that if you see me on video, it's just like you're having almost like a real life meeting with me. So the value of that relationship building is potentially higher than just glancing over some text.
Mhm.
So I don't care if it's got lower views. I'm not super worried about the views. I make up my own metrics. I'm not pretending to be a social media metrics expert, but if I see 170 minutes spent on my video that was 2 minutes long, or 200 minutes spent, I think, oh, that's like maybe 100 people that fully engage and potentially maybe watch my whole video and maybe think I'm smarter now because they heard me say something brilliant. That's amazing. Again, room full of
Mhm.
100 people nodding along and being like, oh, wow, cool. I'll take that any day, because if I know those 100 people, those 100 people matter to me. I don't need a bajillion people to make my business successful. I just need a tiny amount of my hundreds of people to be like, yes, take my money. And that's okay. And if for everyone else, I want to help them for
Mhm.
free, because that's fine. Play with it. Don't get distracted. A text post can be fine. An image post can be fine. Just don't make whatever you're putting in there just a gimmick. Make the picture, make it very relevant, and whatever you choose will be fine. And find something, a medium that you like and that you maybe can stick with.
Mhm. Brilliant. With this idea of using social media to drive revenue generation, do you find that there's perhaps an aspect or two that doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
I think, and I don't want to step on like a sales expert's head here, but you want to bridge your sales, you want to bridge your marketing, and you want to put all those things together with what the information is that you're putting out. I think that's something that doesn't happen enough, where you get those brains together. I think there's a conflict resolution thing that I love to do, where it's you have all these different team members and they all have different missions and they don't understand each other's role. And I
Mhm.
just love to, I'm like really good at explaining social media to people who are not social media people. And when those people work together, there's magic there. So that's one thing I think people miss out on. The other thing is in a sales front. What was I going to say earlier? People selling stuff. Oh, there's this pressure to always get, I saw this even in a post the other day. It's like the pressure is, oh, we don't have enough leads coming in to make money. And it's, yeah, there's getting leads coming in is one thing, but there's also getting money from past clients or upping your current client success or doing all of those things. And I think people put too much pressure on, oh, yeah, I need to hire a service that's just going to give me only leads. And it's leads are one thing, but if your marketing and your product and the way you describe your product sucks, you can't make poop smell good. Like it just doesn't work
Mhm.
that way. So I think that media, the tool is really in a place where it's helping people learn what it is that you can do for them as a tool to enable them to go to a place where they can buy the thing, whether it's with a salesperson or their website. And it's an education medium. And I think that is a tricky thing because it's not necessarily always like a lead machine. And I think when I was a young social media freelancer, they're like, oh, use social media, get me leads. And I'm like, if your marketing sucks and the leader doesn't really tell me how the company works, me posting pretty pictures all the time is great and people will like it, but I'm not telling them what to do as a result. I did this for an app and it was like, if they would have told me, hey, we want people to download this app, it's very different marketing than what I was doing, which was posting relevant, interesting articles from the topic that I served. So it's knowing what place social media is in your marketing,
Mhm.
but also knowing what's reasonable to expect from it and how you use that as a tool in your business.
Hmm.
Never
Excellent.
shared that before, but I have.
Excellent. I'm looking to wrap up here, Shaily. If you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Write down what people are asking you for. Make the conversation that your clients are already having, make it happen for them before they ever talk to you. Get it down on paper. Write those FAQs down. Write those things that they don't understand. Explain it away. And if you want to use it in SEO and put it in a blog form, not a bad thing. You want to eventually take snippets and post it on social media, not a bad thing. You want to put in your emails, not a bad thing. But get that information out of your head somewhere, whether it's a Google Doc or maybe you want to audio message record it. There's a tool that I love that's AI where you can record an audio and I'll turn it into proper words. And I'm like, cool. And it's fantastic. So I get that information out of your head and into paper. It doesn't have to look like content yet, but you can always tap someone else to make it look better. But get it out of your head, put it into paper, put it into a document at a minimum.
Excellent. Great points there. And if listeners are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
Yoursocialmediasherpa.com. Tons of resources, tons of free content. If you want to work with me right now, immediately, you could spend 50 hours watching my content that I made available to you online. Every podcast I've been on, everything. It's all there for you. And if you want to see my very current updates every week right now on LinkedIn, Shaily Hakimian at LinkedIn. You can also do /Hakimian45, my last name, and 45. Follow me, your life will get better. That's all you got to do.
We'll include links to that in the show notes. Shaily, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely. You're wonderful. Oh,
Now,
yeah.